Welcome to the Estate Professionals Mastermind podcast, a podcasting community by estate professionals for estate professionals, where we share the ideas and the access to people that help you work less, earn more, and do good in your community. If you get value in this free content, be sure to check out our membership where you can get live classes, access to weekly coaching, free courses, discounted courses, and 300 free probate leads. To learn more about the membership, you can visit estateprofessionalsmastermind.com. Let's jump into this week's episode. Hey guys, Chad Corbett coming to you with another episode of the Estate Professionals Mastermind podcast. You may not be aware, if you didn't listen to the very last episode, we're transitioning to a more traditional podcast model as we introduce the Estate Professionals Mastermind community. The group coaching calls for the brokerage group coaching call and the investor group coaching call will come into the membership. So if you're used to having access to those there, if you're a member, you can still access those. Just jump into the membership and you'll see how to get that. But going forward, we're going to try to transition this to a more traditional style podcast because I have more time to actually bring amazing guests to the microphone this year. I've been out for the better part of 14 months because I've been dealing with, the family obligations that come with losses in my own family, both immediate and extended. So I'm happy to be back behind this microphone. Today, I'm happy to bring someone to the community that, and as a reminder, the people you see on this show are screened based on mainly on their values and their proof that they're actually an expert in their field. And Jay's a good fit. Like he's a benevolent minded real estate investor who has, influenced thousands of people to get out of their own way and learn to raise private money to fund their deals. And the whole idea of work less, earn more, do good seems to run right through the center of everything that he teaches. So, Jay, welcome to the Estate Professional Mastermind podcast for the first time. Not only the first time. We're going to do a shorter episode today, guys. I think after the recent talks we've had, you'll see more and more of Jay. But I did want to at least give you the opportunity to meet him today. So, welcome, Jay.
Chad, thank you so much for inviting me to come along. I tell you, when I first got to know you and got to listen to you talk about your history and the filter that you see this world through, I knew from the very beginning we've got a lot in common. That is having a true servant's heart. You really care about other people. And, as you and I said, it's like Zig Ziglar. We help enough other people get what they want. We don't have to worry about ourselves. And, one thing that I focus on in addition to private money is foreclosures. And I was doing a talk last week down in Tampa, Florida. My wife, Carol Joy, and I live here in North Carolina, but I was doing a talk down in Tampa, Florida. And it was an hour, 15-minute talk. And I said, listen, folks, I need you all to tell me, are you seriously interested in helping other people, giving back, and really making a difference in people's lives that are facing foreclosure? And if you're not, you need to go take an hour, 15-minute break because this talk ain't for you, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there's nothing wrong with making a lot of money, but I learned from my dad when I was very, very young, unless it's a win-win scenario, don't be involved in the transaction. Anyway, Chad, thank you so much for having me come along. I am most passionate about my most exciting subject and experience, and that is private money, borrowing money from individuals, human beings, to fund my real estate deals. And again, those are all win-win situations and scenarios as well. But I started raising private money out of a need, out of necessity, in February of 2009. And since that time, we've rehabbed a little over 450 houses, but we don't use private money just for ugly houses. We use private money when the seller requires all cash, which is most of the times in the real world. But since that time, Chad, we've never missed out on a deal for not having the funding. And I tell you what, talk about the level of confidence that will instill into a real estate investor, having more money than you know what to do with. You're going to make more offers. Private money's made more of a difference in our investing business than any other strategy or skill set. anything else. It's made the most difference.
I can't help myself but drop another Zig Ziglar quote. And this is actually in my probate mastery course, right before we talk about all the ways you can help these families and monetize that. And Zig famously said, timid salespeople have skinny kids. And that to your point, like if you get to a point of confidence, if you're approaching the probate and trust administration business, if you're approaching that with a benevolent mindset, and you're proud of the offer that you're putting into the community and you do it transparently, that confidence will help you raise capital. You can turn every probate beneficiary or every trust beneficiary into a private lender. And that's what we teach, in session 2 of Probate Mastery. Anyone who's been through that course, that's, part of this community will be like, aha, I remember him talking about that. So one of the things I was excited about to bring Jay to the table is I don't have an entire community built around this or an entire coaching program built around this. I touch on it in courses. We touch on it in weekly coaching calls, like when it comes up. So for those of you who aren't as capitalized as you would like to be, well, one of the things I found really interesting, very few people that I've ever came across will really connect with the idea that or believe that you can turn a seller into a lender at the closing table. And there's 2 things that I try to do with every family who's going through estate administration, whether it's probate or trust. One is I try to make sure that there is a living trust in place for the next generation so they never go through this again. It's costly, it's bureaucratic, and it's stressful. The second thing is I ask them a question and I say, Mr. Seller, are you one of the 90% of people who intend to spend your inheritance in the next 18 months? Or would you rather invest it and have me show you how you can double your principal in about 4 years and then shut up? And that's Jay is teaching similar tactics in his communities at a very high level and has a lot more experience than I do. I've had a lot of fun with private money. I've done a lot of deals with private money. I've created a lot of transactions as a buyer's agent, even by lending my personal or my investor LLC or holding company money to investors who then bought, and I made a brokerage commission in my brokerage company. So the whole conversation around private money, guys, it's about creating a cycle of value, a circle of value and transactions, and just getting paid over and over by continuing to serve. So at the closing table does not represent the end point of a relationship for me, as it does, I would say, for 99% of people. The closing table represents the first milestone in a relationship for me. And that's what I really love about what Jay teaches is he's one of the few people that agree with me and don't go, oh, that's interesting, but oh yeah, that's what we do. So as the host of this, to introduce you to experts that will pass through my filter of benevolence and proof, Jay is that person. So Jay, I know you've got some tools that you want to offer the audience that kind of, if they've never even taken that first step of courage to see if they could even be successful at it. Like, what's your advice to somebody who has the aspirations to, capitalize their own home buying business, or they have investors that are coming up short because of the change in the lending environment? Like, what's a good starting point? And all of your experience, what would you say is the first thing somebody should do to move toward this as a goal in 23?
The very first thing, you as a real estate investor, that I recommend you understand in this world of private money is when you do the business like I do on attracting private money, you never have to ask anybody for money. As a matter of fact, Carol Joy, my wife, and I, we've got 45 private lenders right now funding our deals. All of them have anywhere from $25,000 each to over $750,000 each that are loaning to us. And not one of those 45 private lenders have I ever asked for money. And real estate investors that are first learning about private money the way I do it, they say, Jay, have you got $8.5 million in private money that you move from house to house to house to project, and you didn't ask for it? Here's the secret sauce. And the secret sauce is you put on your teacher hat and you start teaching people what private money is. Did you know that not one of our 45 private lenders ever heard of private money or private lending until I taught them what it was. Not one of those 45 private lenders ever heard of self-directed IRAs until I taught them what it was. And by the way, there's a writer downer right there. An actionable item that you want to do in starting out on learning about private money and teaching people what private money is, it is critical and crucial and imperative for you to establish a relationship with a self-directed IRA company, a third-party custodian, as they're called, to where you can introduce someone that you know or hear has got a retirement account that they're not happy with the returns, and introduce them to your representative at the self-directed IRA company to where your new potential private lender or your new private lender can transfer their retirement funds that they currently have, a 401k from an ex-employer, or maybe they got a retirement fund in the stock market and they're scared to death now of the volatility of the stock market. And you can introduce them to your self-directed IRA company rep that will show them how to transfer their funds over tax-free, penalty-free, to earn an unlimited amount of money every year, either tax-deferred or tax-free, depending on the type of retirement they've got. The reason that's so important is because over half of our 45 private lenders are using their retirement funds to fund our deals and invest with us. So back to what I was saying, put on your teacher hat and start teaching people what private money and private lending is. And you don't have to ask for any money. I mean, you cannot be rejected if you don't ask for money. So they say, well, what's the steps, Shay? How do they become a private lender? Well, I teach them what the private lending program is. I got thousands of students that are now doing the same thing across the nation. So you teach them the program, duplicate mine, and it takes 20 minutes to walk through the PowerPoint. If you can read, you can teach the private lending program. What's the interest rate you pay? How are they protected? How can they get their money back early and all that kind of stuff? And you teach it to them and then you shut up. Yeah. And then it's like, if they've got investment capital or retirement funds, first of all, they're not going to even be giving you their time to hear about how they can earn high rates of return safely and securely, unless they've got investment capital or retirement funds or both. I've got private lenders that are loaning both investment capital and retirement funds. And then you shut up and here's what they say all the time. Well, how do I start? What do I do? Do I just write you a check? For goodness sake, no. Private lender never writes us a check directly because we're not borrowing unsecured funds. They wire their funds when we have a deal for them to fund, and they wire their funds directly to our real estate attorney's trust account. And no funds are distributed until the deal is closed. So here's another specific secret sauce as to how we get deals funded. And I've never pitched a deal in my life. I've never pitched a deal. So how in the world does that work? Well, you teach. Well, the big mistake is to teach somebody your private lending program. By the way, there's no application process. There's no, credit scores being pulled, right? Like a hard money lender would pull. By the way, nothing against hard money lenders. I got great friends that are hard money lenders that go out and raise money for their hard money fund because they learned from me how to raise private money. So, how else do you get your deal funded without asking for it? Well, I've taught them the program. All right. I'm answering the question, what do you do first? You get your mindset right, right? The old traditional way of borrowing money is you go to the bank and you get on your hands and knees and you go, oh, Miss Banker, Mr. Banker, please fund my deal. Please fund my deal. In this world, there's no asking, begging, chasing, or selling or persuading. So after I've taught a new private lender how the program works, they're all excited. They tell me how much they've got. Is it investment? Is it liquid capital? Is it retirement funds? I need to introduce them to my self-directed IRA company rep and they get their account funded. So then I got a deal for them to fund. How do I get this deal funded? And I don't even pitch the deal. Here's the script. Are you ready for the script? Here's the script. I pick up the phone. We actually still have landlines here in North Carolina with cords attached to them. We're a little archaic here. So I pick up the phone and I call my private lender and I tell them 4 things after a little chit chat. How you doing? Blah, 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 blah. I'll say, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work for you. I've got a house in Newport, right here adjacent to Morehead City with I didn't tell them the physical address. They could care less. I got a house here in Newport with an after repaired value of $200,000. The funding required is $150,000. I know they got $150,000. They already told me. The funding required is $150,000. Closing is next Thursday. You'll need to have your funds wired to my closing agent next Wednesday, and I'm going to email you the wiring instructions. End of conversation. It's like, if I ask them, do they want to do the deal? That's the most stupid question I could ask ever. Now they're going to say, well, maybe, should I fund the deal? What? They're waiting for the phone call to put their funds to work, particularly if they're using their retirement funds. They ain't making no money on their retirement funds as long as it's sitting in their self-directed IRA account to the company I referred them to until I put their money to work. So back to the question, where do you start? You start with owning the real estate in between your ears before you start trying to own real estate out there. And it's all about positioning. Sometimes real estate investors will say, well, Jay, who in the world is going to loan me money? And I ain't never done a real estate deal to start with. Who's going to do that? Well, I can tell you, a private lender that you have protected and you know how to protect them. Here's a writer downer. If you don't pay them, the property does. Well, what in the world does that mean? Well, if you don't pay them, you've given them a mortgage or a deed of trust. They get the property if you don't pay them. And there are 3 C's, particularly, that are important for a new real estate investor to understand. And those 3 C's are confidence, connections, and I forgot the third one. I'll tell you in a second. Let's start with confidence. No, it ain't cash. So first of all, the confidence. Know your program. You see, you're teaching people what the program is, right? So you want to be confident. Well, how in the world do you know what the program is? I got you covered on that. I just wrote a new private money guide that'll lay it out for you. But you want to teach the program to them as to how they are protected, right? And, people know, if you know what you're talking about or not. And then your connections. Who are the people on your team? Who's your CPA? Who's your real estate attorney? Who's your realtor if it's not yourself, right? So you want to have, that team in place. So again, you want to be educated on how to teach people what the private lending program is. So how do you get started? Learn the program, know the program, and get your head straight. You're not asking, you're not selling, you're not begging, you're not chasing, you're teaching. And in fact, when I meet somebody in a new social setting, what do people always ask you? Well, what do you do? What do you do? Well, my answer to that is I teach private lenders how to make a lot of money. They have no idea what I said. That's the point of the answer, is to go to a conversation. Then we talk about private money and private lending and thus and so. So how do you start? Get your head screwed on right, get educated on how to teach what private money is, and now the money is chasing you.
So thanks for that. So in this community, people are more conditioned to think inside of the probate niche. And I want to point back to a few statistics for you guys. So between now and, early 2060s, we will unfortunately lose the baby boomer generation. All of them will be of retirement age by 2031. The number associated with the assets that have been accumulated by that generation is upwards of $142 trillion in assets. Now, around 82% of the senior citizens own homes, and about 67% of those homes are held free and clear. You guys have been conditioned to look at real estate equity as the only way you can get paid, like the equity in these estate deals. Now, think about that 142 trillion as, their unrealized gains. That's partly unrealized gains in stocks, bonds, real estate, equities. But also the one that a lot of people overlook is life insurance. So only about 45% of Americans hold life insurance policies, but their heirs are most commonly the beneficiaries. Those people are oftentimes savvy enough to sell their real estate, move into condos or RVs, and that gets overlooked by many real estate professionals. So the estate niche is one of the best places to raise capital that you've never heard of. And things like or whole life policies, even for people in the end of life phase, they think it's a life insurance policy. They made a decision in their 20s or 30s because someone they trusted got into insurance, and they've been making those premium payments all this time. A lot of those policies can be liquidated, and you can borrow that money. It's tax-free money. And it's literally just borrowing money that they currently don't have access to anyway. So in the elder care space and the estate administration space, there are an unbelievable amount of opportunities to raise capital to the tunes of over $100 trillion of equity, but it's not all held in real estate. Some of it's held in illiquid assets. Some of it's booked as unrealized gains, but we can create liquidity. It comes down to understanding finance, but first being empathetic to who these people are, the situation they're in, the lack of knowledge they have. And you have to be the educator to give them the knowledge, to have the confidence to actually step out and talk to their registered investment advisor about what it looks like to borrow from their whole life policy. To say, you know what, custodian, you're not meeting my needs. You're telling me I have to buy garbage mutual funds with 3 layers of fees. I'm going to transition this to a self-directed IRA or an EQRP, where I can invest in what I want to invest in. And you, as a real estate practitioner, it's your job to become a teacher. First of all, it's your job to understand the finance, especially the more creative side of this that I've shown. Jay was talking about some entry points. I'm talking about a few more advanced things just to show you all the opportunity that exists that you've probably not heard of on other channels. But you're in the course of buying homes or helping them sell homes, you've built a strong rapport. Don't walk away at the closing table and say, "Oh, nice to know you. Glad I can help you." Because if you can just shift your mindset to where this is the beginning of the relationship, not the end, you could have a lifelong lending relationship with every family you come into contact to. So a lot of times I think people roll their eyes when I get on this soapbox, but from a probate lead standpoint, most people think, well, I just want the leads in my zip code that own real estate. And how do I scrub the list? My answer is always the same. You scrub the list with an iPhone. Well, how do you do that? Well, and I'm like, it's a really advanced tactic. You turn it on, you dial a number, and you talk to a human. And I wholeheartedly believe that, because one of the reasons I'm willing to call and offer any service to any family in estate administration is because I know I can monetize that conversation. One of the ways is by knowing the average U.S. inheritance is around $180,000, and we've got roughly $100 trillion transferring from one generation to their heirs. So I have a pretty good degree of confidence they've got some money, and they probably don't know how to make money with it the way that I do. So I build rapport with them. I educate them on things that they have not had exposure to, and just say, here's what I do with my money. And then I just back off and I'll close it out. And I don't ask for money, just like what Jay says. What he's teaching is absolutely how I do it. If you tell someone how to make an 18% APY, you don't have to ask them for money. They're like, well, okay, the way a lot of these conversations outside of the probate space have started for me is like, what do you do? Are you a drug dealer or what? And because I live a fun lifestyle, I vacation a lot and ride motorcycles and camp, but I always seem to be, progressing. And a lot of the private money conversations start with, what do you even do? And, I was like, that's how I loaned a lot of money that way. People were like, I guess, heard I had money, but they're like, are you a drug dealer or what? So, but anyways, I wanted to point out, like, there's a bigger opportunity in the estate space than almost anyone realizes. And you guys are already out there building rapport with these families. So if you're not taking that to the next level of service, to the next level of benefit for yourself and for your investors, then you're literally leaving 7 figures of money on the table in a career. So you need to find a mentor for things like this, in my opinion. I don't have programs that teach this. That's why Jay was invited to the community as an expert. He has the entry level stuff that he mentioned, and I think you have a copy there on your desk. You can show them the workbook that you had.
Sure. This is my private money guide that I just recently finished writing, and it's called 7 Reasons Why Private Money Will Skyrocket Your Real Estate Business and Help You Build Incredible Wealth. If you want private money and funding for your deals, I tell you my statistics, Chad, and I have reviewed thousands and thousands and thousands of property lead sheets from sellers since 2003. I've been full-time real estate investing since 2003. And my statistics show, and I'm a good negotiator, right? My statistics show only 13% of for sale by owners will sell to me creatively. What do the other 87% require? Either some of the cash or all the cash, right? Mm-hmm. And so this private money guide is a great way to start. You can download it for free to get on the fast track to getting private money for your real estate investing deals at www.jayconner, and I'm an ER, not an OR, Jayconner, JayConner.com/money guide. That's Jayconner, JayConner.com/money guide. And I tell you, Chad, I knew our core values were the same, but I did not know until being right here on your podcast that a manifestation of our common core is having our teacher hat on and just teaching people what we know and how it will benefit them.
Yeah. It's, and for me, like we were talking before we started the recording, like I started taking more of a passive approach to investing in 2016 because of what I saw and because of what I learned about finance. I've watched a lot of people make a lot of money doing a lot of deals. I've done well too in passive investments, but having kind of stepped out of production, I've seen where it cost me opportunities to serve other people in the community. Because when I was actively lending and borrowing and flipping houses and building rental portfolios, it was just another way that I could provide a higher level of service than, I got a lot of friends in financial services, not to offend anyone, but I don't know any of them that average a 15% yield, much less 18 or 19.
Yeah. Chad, real quick, if you don't mind me interrupting you just real quick, but just to make a point, and this is another reason why you and I have so much in common. You said that you've done a lot of things that you didn't make a penny off of it in your community. Well, that's how we approach talking to people that are in foreclosure. Your niche there is probate. We talk to people in foreclosure, particularly in this market, my lands. And one of the first questions we ask them when they respond to our marketing is, do you want to keep your house? Do you want to keep your property? And if they say yes, we say, well, have you talked to your lender? Unfortunately, most of them haven't because they're in denial, got their head in the ground like the ostrich. Have you talked to your lender? Well, no. Well, have you thought about talking to your lender about a loan modification, or have you thought about talking to your lender about a deferment program? And, if we give that person an idea that they're able to act on and they have the financial capability of making their payments again, and they keep their house, is there anything in that transaction directly in it for me? And the answer is no, but that's okay. If I can help somebody keep their home, then that's fantastic. Like you've heard me say, Chad, if I help enough other people get what they want and help them, I ain't got to worry about Jay Conner.
Yeah, I don't think you've seen this, Jay, but there's a video of me on YouTube. I just looked this morning. Ironically, it's a year old today. It was from a probate role play call, but a lot of people, they know I have experience in pre-foreclosure and foreclosure avoidance. And as I looked this morning, it had like topped out at like 16,000 views. But you're one of the few people that asked a very similar question. My question, the way every pre-foreclosure, I believe pre-foreclosure is more emotionally sensitive than probate. I've sat in front of thousands of probate situations, and I've sat in front of nearly as many pre-foreclosure. They're usually in denial, where when you meet with somebody in probate, they've already blown through anger into acceptance. And you're talking directly to that to a healthier person, quite frankly. And so what I found in pre-probate is most people who are drawn to it look at it as, there's blood in the water. Let me go feed, when it should be handled even more tactfully than a death situation. So my question was always, and I'll say I got everyone I wanted, but my question was always, would you rather me help you find a way to stay in your home, or would you like me to help you start writing a new chapter? And then I shut up.
That's a beautiful question.
But I do the same thing you do. I start them with, okay, well, can you see any windfalls of cash coming up in your current situation? Or can you borrow money from family members to bring the loan current? Do you think that we can get the reason you fell behind? Do you think that we can get the let's see if we can get the lender to believe that that's going to fix itself. And all I'm doing is accelerating what's ultimately going to happen. 71% of those people I know will go to foreclosure with not having ever talked to an expert of any kind. And that's one of the saddest things I've ever seen in my life, is to watch a sheriff pull a family out, kids crying, trying to grab their belongings. They have no money for a moving truck, and they're being legally removed. Probate is a sad situation. Pre-foreclosure is damn devastating. And to look at the man that's on the front porch, just in a complete point of apathy because he didn't tell his family what was going on. And now they're moving to the shittiest extended stay hotel in the city for who knows how long, and how they're going to pay for it. And so for me, like, it's one of those areas. I'll link to that video below so you guys can see exactly how I do that. And it actually comes with a mind map, like how my brain is working. I know within 10
Chad,
minutes.
I would love to see that. I'd love to see it.
Sure. I'll drop a link in the show notes. It's about a 20-minute clip. I explained first by the mind map. It was one of my students. I was on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington in my camper. So if you're like, why is this guy in a toy hauler? It's because I lived on the road and started the company from that. But that is like the only time I've ever really publicly done it. Back in 2011, 12, 13, 14, it was really common. And, a lot of times I would help people actually save their home by getting them to move out and accessing equity in some way, or accessing liquidity in some other area of their life. And then they would come back when they were on their feet, and they would buy from me. They would lend to me. So it's about building social capital and just doing what's right. Like, you help enough other people get what they want, you'll always have an excess. So guys, listen, I think that, like I told Jay before this started, I think this will be the first of many conversations around private lending. I do want to be respectful of Jay's time. He had a hard stop. So I'm going to wrap up for here right now. Jay, please tell them how they can get in contact with you. You've told them where you can download the book. Anything else, if you want to share where the easiest place to find you? And also, you have your own show. So if you want to hear Jay as a guest or as a host talking about private money more, please tell them where they can connect.
Absolutely. So in addition to downloading my free gift for you on private money at jconnor.com/money guide, I'd love for you to come join me and check out my podcast, which is very, very easy to find. Guess what the name of the podcast is? Raising Private Money is the name of the podcast. So just search on your iTunes or your Spotify or wherever you're listening, Raising Private Money with Jay Connor. And on every episode, I release 2 episodes a week, Monday mornings at 5 a.m. and Thursday mornings at 5 a.m. And every episode, well, 99.99% of every episode, I'm interviewing other real estate investors that are great at raising private money, and I pick their brains on where they find their private lenders, how they structure their deals, how they start a conversation with a new private lender, and how they have more money than they can spend on real estate, just like I do. So yeah, come join me on a show at Raising Private Money with Jay Connor.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Jay. I appreciate you being a guest and letting our community borrow from your experience. And we look forward to having you back. You guys drop some comments. Let Jay know that he got your wheels turning here today. and connect with him on his channels too. And if you have an idea of something you wish we would have talked about today and we didn't get there, drop a comment and let us know what you would like to learn more about. And we might go deeper on some of these really specific topics, like some of the more advanced things we brought up were, borrowing from a whole life or index universal life, using self-directed retirement accounts that you might not have heard of, like EQRPs. If you want to go deeper on some of those things, just let us know in the comments below, and we'll try to schedule some more time to have a little more higher level conversation. But thanks so much for tuning in. You can find us at estateprofessionalsmastermind.com, and have a great week.